Hello everyone, we have some ban list updates to cover today that will come into effect for the 3-card blind main event tournament in October. As a community, you voted on these 5 cards to determine whether they would remain legal or be added to the ban list. And this month it was a sweep, with all 5 of these cards being banned. Velia Exuberant Shepherd was the card that received the least favorable average vote this month from the community, with nearly half of all voters marking the card as a -2 definitely ban. One of the most significant outcomes here is that it is going to force players to look for new threats to combine with Rishadenport if they want to leverage its disruptive capabilities. There are plenty of other candidates, but Velia is leaving behind some pretty big shoes to fill. Idol of False Gods doesn't really feel like there's a card that can easily take its place. It wasn't rated much more favorably than Velia, with most of the community in agreement that it was time for this card to go back on the ban list. The most popular Idol of False Gods deck used Fields of Ruin, Sol Ring, and Idol of False Gods, which allowed you to use chump blockers to stall out against aggressive decks before turning Idol of False Gods online, while having Field of Ruin as a backup plan against slower decks running things like storage lands. I think this card being added to the ban list could remove some pressures from aggressive decks and slow decks alike. Stingerback Terror deserves to be mentioned in a similar capacity because it was also very frequently played with Field of Ruin. Stingerback Terror had the most favorable average vote among cards that were voted on this month. It was an extremely close vote with almost as many voters who wanted it legal as those who wanted it banned. Between Idol of False Gods and Stingerback Terror being added to the ban list, the premier threats for Field of Ruin decks have been eliminated from the format. This of course doesn't mean that Field of Ruin will vanish from the format entirely, but players might need to make a harder choice about which threat they want to use. Speaking of which, with Living Conundrum being added to the ban list, the options for storage land payoffs may have gotten a little bit broader. The reason so many players were interested in seeing this card added to the ban list was it was the de facto best storage land deck in most metas that we've seen in recent history. Whether it was Maze of Ith or more recently Energy Field, Living Conundrum was the most well-rounded threat that you could play in a deck that planned on deploying its strategy a little bit slower. In its absence, we may see storage land decks split, with some of them trending towards colorless threats like Ulamog in combination with Energy Field, or more modest threats like Angel of Sanctions or Rampaging Aetherhood in combination with Maze of Ith. And there are likely many other options as well. Living Conundrum's absence will make the playing field that much broader. And our final card that was added to the ban list was Krenko Baron of Tin Street. In combination with Mana Crypt and Mox Ruby, this was one of the fastest decks in the format, able to knock out opponents by the 4th turn. The fact that it split this threat across multiple creatures also made it harder to pin down with something like Maze of Ith compared to Unstoppable Slasher, which is the same speed. There are still other fast all-in decks in the format right now, like Unstoppable Slasher and Phyrexian Dreadnought, but because these remaining decks have their threat tied up in a single body, it will hopefully give some more breathing room for slower decks in the format. And before we wrap up, we also have to cover the outcome of this month's supporter unban vote. Among the cards that were eligible to be unbanned, we did see one of them get enough support to be removed from the ban list, and that card was Show and Tell. At the time that Show and Tell was originally banned, it was being used in combination with Lotus Bloom. And after Show and Tell was banned, Lotus Bloom was banned a few months later. Of course, Show and Tell is still castable using something like Sand Silos, but the difference is that Lotus Bloom lets you land your huge Haymaker on your 4th turn, and Sand Silos will delay you in this strategy until your 5th turn. And just within the context of this video, it should be clear that the difference between turn 4 and turn 5 in the format is pretty substantial. Show and Tell is positioned to be an exciting deck with some really cool payoffs, but if you choose to leverage this strategy, you leave yourself entirely defenseless for 4 turns and you're just hoping your opponent isn't running a very fast deck. And that wraps up all of the updates to the ban list that will come into effect for this October's main event. Deck submission will run between the 1st and 7th of the month, and you can submit a deck by visiting the website linked in the description of this video. And don't forget that October will be the first month that cards from the Spider-Man set are legal in the format. I'm excited to see what you all can cook up. Thanks for watching, everyone. and see you soon.